Right, it's a pleasure to see so many faces in the audience. I hope that our talk lives up to the expectation. Right, so a little introduction. My name's Daniel Smith. I'm with Trimble Real Estate and Workplace Solutions. Been with the company for about 5 years, but been within the real estate industry for knocking on 20 years. Worked both with the fund managers and the investor side of the business, but also on the owner-occupier side of the real estate business as well. My colleague?
And my name is Roger Parslow. I'm by background as a surveyor before I moved into the property software side of things some years ago, and now I'm development director or business development director at LMG, and we're strategic partners.
Okay. So a little bit about us, and then we'll get into the real reason why everybody's sitting in the room today, not to hear about who we are and who we work for, but just to give you a little bit of background. Trimble Real Estate and Workplace Solutions is a division of Trimble. Trimble's been around for about 30 years and is really in a number of sectors. And the main sector that we sit within is the buildings division, and that's everything from cradle to grave, from computer-aided design and BIM for the construction part of the industry, through project management and BIM management for the delivery of those buildings, into what we deal with within our particular division in terms of operating those buildings. So from leasing all the way through to planned and reactive maintenance, and down to what we use those rooms and those desks within the buildings for, and that sort of gives you a little bit of an idea of the direction that we're taking in the talk today.
And LMG, it's a £40 million intelligent building service company. We've been going about 30 years, and we work with major corporates both in the UK and internationally.
Okay. So really the talk that we wanted to give today was really about trends that we see in the marketplace, and focusing specifically on a couple of those that we'll boil down to in a moment. So at the beginning of this year, we really took stock like we all do. I mean, I personally have some items here that I've been looking at. If anybody wants to sponsor me for a Tough Mudder I'm doing later this year, you'll not lose any money, don't worry. So we did a bit of research. We've got one of our key strategists, Nancy Sanquist, that worked with a number of our leading partners in various universities and research think tanks around the world to put together a global trend list. Now, we're not talking about global trends specifically for London, such as rental prices going up and all those sorts of things. We're talking about global technology trends and what's really changing the way that we're working in all aspects of the real estate world. And the elements that we came up with fall into these 10 categories here, and we could spend probably an hour talking about each individual one. But we've got 30 minutes to cover two, so let's rack on through those. The two that we wanted to focus on were obviously the top two, because they rise to the top, I think, in most people's thought processes at the moment. The advent of the digital workplace and really what that means for people, and I think Roger will be talking a bit later about one particular way that factors into all of our lives. And then lease accounting changes, which might sound a bit dull unless there's some accountants in the room. But the accounting changes really do focus our mind on how we're using our portfolio and how that portfolio may change over time. And I don't want to spend too much time talking about the mechanics of the lease accounting changes. These have been coming for an awfully long time now, and I think many people have been beaten over the head with what this means quite a bit. But now that they've actually finalised them and they're actually coming into effect, I think it's about time that people really did focus their attention and make sure they are ready for them. So at least it warrants highlighting that at the moment. So there is a connection, and we'll be talking about the connection between not just the accounting standard changes, but all the different elements that really feed into why we need to really sweat that space that we have even more efficiently. Now, the accounting changes obviously going to impact anyone that's leasing space to a greater or lesser extent. And really the main focus of that, I'll go through these in fairly quick order. For anyone that isn't particularly familiar with that, it's that the leases will have to form a debt on your balance sheet, so therefore it does actually affect your financial statements in a way that it didn't do before. So we're going to see people having to pay more attention to the strategy around the leasing process, because ultimately this could, if you're a publicly listed company, affect your stock prices, and at the very least it may affect your debt equity ratio and how able you are as an organisation to raise funds through debt. So what are we going to see? The changes? Well, we've mentioned how they're actually going to impact all the various aspects of the business. We could go into a lot more detail in terms of financial risk, but I've mentioned the debt-equity ratios and how that's going to affect you on your credit worthiness. But really, how do we deal with that? Because I think we've been told for many years about all these new changes coming. So really the way that we have to deal with that is centralising the lease information. Historically, a lot of the clients that we're bringing on board now have kept all of this lease information, perhaps locally in different countries or regionally in different parts of the business. And that information might be fragmented and passed around between the accounting department, the leasing department, facilities departments, and really needs to be centralised so you can understand what the portfolio looks like, and then apply an accounting system, such as ours, that would allow you then to work out the net present value and how that would then impact the balance sheet. And really from an accounting standards perspective, it's all about showing your workings. So rather than having to spend your days, or your accounts department spending their days, or the property team's days knee-deep in spreadsheets, going through different formulas and making sure they're still correct from the last time you checked them, really having a standardised system wrapped around that can show you all the different steps that it's gone through, but control all those steps for you is obviously hugely beneficial. So what do we see this as really impacting the market going forwards? So we know we're going to get a technology system in place. We know we're going to be able to manage those leases in a more proficient manner. But how does that affect the strategy? So some people have argued that we might see shorter leases coming out of it. And I think we've seen shorter leases as a trend over the last few years. But it's going to end up with an equilibrium because we don't want to be moving offices every 5 years. We don't want the cost of the refits and the fit-outs and moving all of our staff every 5 years. So there's probably going to find an equilibrium. But there will be a pressure on not taking additional space because that will add to the balance sheet that we don't want to add to. We also see other factors coming into this as well, and we'll talk a bit more about the crane survey in London. I think I saw some Deloitte faces floating around earlier on. So Deloitte have recently done a survey around the number of cranes and the number of new office space that's becoming available in London. Currently a bit of a pinch. We're also seeing GDP on the way up, so we're seeing central London and West End rental values increasing, something in the region of 10 to 12%. So there's lots of good reasons why we don't necessarily want to increase our footprint over and above where it is now. And obviously everybody would like to decrease their footprint to a certain degree to reduce the rental values. But certainly if we're trying to maintain the size of portfolio we've got, have a minimal impact on the balance sheet, and have a minimal impact on new spend, on new fit-outs, we need to do better with what we have. And that's really the tie-in to what we want to talk about next. So out of all of the possible outcomes that we mentioned, the two that really we want to boil that down to is if I don't want to expand my office space or my lease space because I don't want to take on those increased rents, and because we don't want to have an additional impact on the balance sheet, I have to do better with what we have. For those of you that want to pick up on the crane survey, there's also some other elements in there that we took some of this research from. So obviously the pinch on the amount of office space coming available, and some other major trends that I've mentioned there that we can go and look up, increasing rent prices, and also interestingly, the cost per desk. If I've got somebody sitting at a desk 8 hours a day, but actually are they sitting there at 8 hours a day? They're off at meetings for 7 of those. Then really, is that cost something that I want to bear on a one-to-one basis? And really, that hands over to Roger.
Thank you very much, Dan. So leading on from what Dan was saying, we have shorter leases, more agile working, more use of flexible space. And the consequence of this is it's much easier for organisations to flex their portfolio, and will be increasingly easier. So they can shed space more easily with shorter leases, they can take on additional space as and when they need it. And that creates a great opportunity to much better match demand and supply for space to an extent that hasn't really been possible before. And so what that means is that you can support the business with just the right amount of space and not be lumbered with a whole lot of space that you're paying for, perhaps costing you millions, but you don't really need. The second opportunity is enhanced productivity through an enhanced digital experience for your employees and your visitors and your clients. So I'm concentrating on the two research trends here. So advent of the digital workplace and growing use of Internet of Things in buildings. And my main focus is on space utilisation analytics and the way that these trends are supporting the provision of this enhanced digital workspace. So first aspect of this, and a trend we've been noticing, is the growing digitisation of buildings. And part of this is the convergence of digital services onto a common building service LAN. And that includes all these types of things like the physical security, so access control systems, core services such as lighting, and the subsystems such as cashless vending, follow me printing, and that type of thing. And the reason behind it is because it's more efficient and cheaper to install in this way, and also more simple and also lower cost in order for the ongoing maintenance. And the reason this is important is that it creates a mass of highly useful data within a building that can then be used for more intelligent facilities management. So let's see how this works for space utilisation analytics. So this green dot is somebody arriving in a building, and they go to the access control system. They get out their card and they swipe in. And that is the first digital footprint they're leaving during the course of the day. Next, they want a cup of coffee, so they go to the coffee machine, which operates on cashless vending. Again, they swipe in. Next, they want somewhere to work, so they go to an allocated workspace that isn't being used. They log on their laptop. Then they need to do some printing, so they go to the follow me printing place. Again, they swipe in before going off to a meeting room for an impromptu meeting. Here they swipe into Trimble's scheduling software, again leaving a footprint before, it's lunchtime, so they go very fast by their desk, pick up the laptop and put it not into the toilet, as one of my colleagues suggested earlier, but an intelligent locker, again leaving a footprint. So then they work their way into the eating area, and again, out comes the card, and they're swiping into that cashless vending machine. Then, in the afternoon, it's off to a colleague's desk for an impromptu meeting, before heading off to a hot desk, because the original desk up here is no longer available, where they do the final email of the day, again, logging in to that hot desk, and then going to the access control system at the end of the day, and swiping out. So that is typical for perhaps a visitor in the building. The result of that is, and I hate to use this term because it's overused, but it's big data. So if you scale up that one person in the building, so everybody in the building, and then you scale up across an organisation, you're talking seriously large amounts of data, hundreds of millions of transactions of rich data that can be mined. So specifically what that involves is valuable analytics in a wired environment at desk level for your utilisation stats. It also gives you the graphical displays, heat maps and such like, and analysis by group, so they could be departments within an organisation, sort of sales versus accounts, for example, or maybe visitors or contractors. And we've been doing this for a number of years with our customers and helping them align the environment to the business and saving them literally millions of pounds. But some of you might be thinking, especially the green dot going around, this is a bit Big Brother. But it isn't actually. So our customers are not interested in the individual, they're interested in the group. It's the group behaviour that they want. And all the data that we see is anonymised, so it's just numbers to us. However, there are limitations. So as we move into a more agile wireless environment where space is being shared and there's collaboration, then that connection with a desk is lost, and that starts hitting the accuracy of our space utilisation analytics. Also, this is retrospective data, it's not real-time data, so that limits the ability with the individual to then interact with the building. So that brings us on to the next point, whereas 4 years ago, the big driver for people interacting with us in this area was about lowering the total cost of occupancy. But more recently, the requirements have evolved, and these have been well discussed, but are no less valid. So our customers are saying that they want to attract and retain talent, use it by providing an excellent digital as well as a physical workplace environment. And if I could comment on Andy Thornton, if he's here, his suggestion that it's CRAP, that it should be used in this way, we're hearing it from the horse's mouth. We're hearing it from the real estate directors of major corporates in the city. Secondly, they're looking to optimise productivity by engaging staff and allowing them to operate in a more efficient manner, and by offering a VIP experience for their clients, which underpins the branding of the organisation and ultimately will help organisations win more sales. But nevertheless, there is always that drive. So often, as well as these other two requirements, they're still being asked to reduce CapEx by, or OpEx, total cost of occupancy by 30% or more. So, on the basis of this, and these trends we're responding to, we've come up with, or we've had to devise solutions which will answer some of these questions. And the way we're doing this is through location-based services. Can I have a quick show of hands as to people who are familiar now with the concept of location-based services? That's very few. So basically what this is providing typically on a smartphone information and services that will be helpful to you as an individual as you go about your daily life, whether it be working or social. And these are based on who you are, what your preferences are as an individual, and importantly where you are and perhaps where your colleagues are. And these are widely used in social networking, but also these other industries like retail, hospitality, travel, healthcare, education. For social networking, they operate with triangulation using a GPS system, but a GPS system doesn't work in a building, or not very well. So we either have to use Wi-Fi, that's triangulation on a Wi-Fi access point, or Bluetooth low energy beacons. And we think that for an area where you want to have the granularity in an office building down to maybe a square metre or 1 or 2 metres, then Bluetooth low energy is the most efficient way of achieving that. So very quickly, the way this works, you put battery-powered beacons, as they're called, up into your ceiling void on a 5-metre grid. They will then triangulate on an individual smartphone and then feed a location engine, which then goes up into, or feeds an analytics engine, but then feeds into the location-based services engine, which provides services back to the individual. Now, some organisations are such that it's not really acceptable to ask everyone to download an app. They just won't accept it. It doesn't go with the culture. So what you can do is you can flip this model on the head so that the beacons go on a lanyard around your neck, along with your security pass, all integral, and they will triangulate onto an observer grid in the ceiling, and that will then feed the location engine and the location-based services in the same way. And that allows the individual, if they want to opt in to those location-based services, but there's no compulsion to do so. So what sort of benefits can this bring to the workplace? Well, a good place to start is work we've been doing with Trimble at a customer site. And what we're doing is combining their scheduling, room booking software with our location-based services. So the first example of what this can do, and we're just touching on some examples here, is space scheduling by location. And this will allow you to book a room in the normal way, but also taking advantage of the location-based services that are available on your smartphone. So this could be, where are my colleagues right now? They don't have to have booked in anywhere, but where are they right now? Where is busy at the moment and where is quiet, given the work that I've got to do? What is the closest resource in terms of meeting rooms or breakout areas or printers to where I am right now? The second thing it can do, once you've booked, say, a room, is when you arrive, it will automatically recognize who you are. So there are other ways of doing this. You can sort of do swipe-ins and QR codes, but they involve sort of a human interaction. It's very easy to forget to do those, and then the whole experience becomes a bit more clunky. Importantly, you can, if you haven't shown up the desk, it can be or a hot desk, it can be automatically released onto the scheduling system, so it's available for somebody else to book. It's the same for it's the same for meeting rooms. So when you arrive in a meeting room, well, if you haven't arrived at a meeting room, it can be released in exactly the same way. But assuming you have arrived in the meeting room, the soft services team can be automatically told that you've arrived, and therefore now is the time for refreshments to be brought. Similarly, the meeting room could adapt to you and your personal preferences based on previous experience, perhaps. So it might be the way you like the lighting set or the type of AV setup that you like for this type of meeting. And then at the end of the meeting, a message can also go to soft services again, which will tell the cleaners to come in and clear up the room. So this is all entirely seamless. Then after the meeting, the host of the meeting is given the opportunity to offer feedback. So if it's good feedback, they've enjoyed the experience in the room, this can be remembered by the system so that perhaps they're offered the same room again. And this is similar to the sort of experience you get in hotels, like 5-star hotels. If you say that you've enjoyed a particular room, they will remember that you've enjoyed that room and offer it to you next time they're in the building, and it gives that more personal level of service. It can also offer a VIP experience for your clients as they come to a meeting. So this might start when they accept the meeting invitation via Outlook. They download an app onto their phone, and then when they arrive at the building for a meeting, the BLE network will pick up the fact that you've come into the building, the host will automatically be identified, and a service will then be given to that individual based on who they are. So if you're important enough, the red carpet comes out. So one of our customers is a major finance organisation, and they have 3 categories of visitor. They have the standard visitor, they have the broker community, and then they have the pension fund managers who potentially have hundreds of millions of pounds to invest with them. So they have a different experience according to each category it is. And they want to be able to put in the human experience, the human feel, human touch, the attention to those sort of really important VIP customers. For those other types of visitor, they want to offer perhaps a more mechanised, a more automated version, a bit more like checking into a flight, so a bit more self-service. And this is a very good way of offering a 5-star service to those VIPs at effectively 2-star money. So these BLE networks and all these interactions in the building give a wealth of data available to a FM and a CRE manager. It's never been possible before or available before. And we are analysing, in terms of space utilisation, not only the desks and the meeting rooms, which is pretty standard, but every area which is relevant for you as a manager. So the all-important shared spaces, those collaboration areas, those wireless areas. And it's not just whether they're occupied or not, it's who is occupying them, what sort of team is occupying them, and where are they interrelating. And it's not just quantitative data, it's qualitative data as well, because the individuals are able to feed back as to their experience of the space. And then you can go to the next level and building in perhaps a feed and an overlay from Leaseman, that was mentioned earlier, also allowing analysis not only of satisfaction with the building, but perhaps densities, and you can then see what is working for you as an organisation. So all this is allowing the CRE and FM manager to make smarter decisions about their portfolio faster. So just to summarise, we've seen how the built environment is evolving from analogue to digital. So we have the digital building and the building Internet of Things, combining with a digitisation of the individual and then building location-based services to create the truly intelligent building, and that allows more intelligent facilities management. And the sorts of outcomes we're getting are an optimal staff and visitor experience, increased business productivity, and that reduced total cost of occupancy. And this is an area we're very excited about, and we've only really touched the surface today, but buildings will become more intelligent. They're going to become more interactive, and we can only begin to imagine the effect that these are going to have in terms of productivity, well-being, and comfort. Thank you.
Thank you.